variables, and then we will discuss about the ARIMA model, the most popular method of model for forecasting. It was developed by Box-Jenkins, so it is popularly called as Box-Jenkins ARIMA, and we will discuss about the methodology, how we should go about with the ARIMA model. So this is the overview of today's session. So let us get in and try to understand the concepts. The first thing is multivariate. What is multivariate? When there are more than one independent variables, we call it as multivariate. Okay, multiple variables. So the dependent variable is always one single variable, but there will be more than one independent variables. So when there are more than one independent variables, we call it as multivariate or multiple variables. I have quoted a small example. Consumption. We all know, yesterday you have been discussing about the income consumption theory. Income, that is salary, what I earn has got an influence on the consumption pattern. So salary is my independent variable, consumption is my dependent variable. So when I have more than one independent variable, there can be salary is one independent variable, followed by this can also be influenced by my family size, and can also be influenced by standard of living. So when I include more than one independent variable, that is family size as an independent variable because it is different for you and me, and the standard of living also is an independent variable. So when I make use of more than one independent variable, we call it as multivariate or multiple variables. So then we have another two classifications. The other is bivariate, and one more thing is univariate. Because only when you understand this, it is easy for us to understand where ARIMA is used. Okay, when I say bivariate, it comprises of two variables, that is one dependent variable and one independent variable. But if the dependent variable assumes its own lagged values, even then it is called as a bivariate model. Okay, so let us assume here there are two variables. Spot price is the variable, future price is a variable. Spot price is the dependent variable, future price is the independent variable. This spot price is influenced by the future price, but the past value of the spot price may also have a significant influence on the spot price. Okay, so yesterday's value of the spot price can also have an influence on today's spot price, like how future price is impacting the spot price. You can ask me, so yesterday's price, that is yesterday's spot price, is a lagged value of spot price. It is an independent variable, and future price is an independent variable. Why don't we call it as multivariate? No, we don't call it as multivariate because this variable spot price assumes its own lag as an independent variable and also an additional component, an additional new independent variable. That is why this is called as bivariate analysis. If a variable assumes its own lag along with another independent variable, we don't call it as multivariate, we call it as bivariate only. Even future price lagged values can also be considered. There is nothing wrong. But how many whenever we consider the lag values along with another independent variable, we assume this as a bivariate model, not as a multivariate model. Followed by the univariate model. What is univariate? Single variable model or one variable model it is called. So when I say single variable, how do I understand whether this variable is influenced by some other factor or not? So when I say single variable model, this model or this variable assumes its own lagged values as its independent variable. So that is why it is called as an univariate model. See the equation, whatever I have written, see all the three equations look similar. Only here in multivariate analysis, every equation beta 1 into salary. Salary is an independent variable. Next, family size, then standard of living. The equation may look similar, but the independent variables what you are considering defines whether it is multivariate, bivariate or univariate. See here, when I say bivariate, I have taken two variables. One is the future price, the spot price. Spot price is the dependent variable. So future is my independent variable. Lagged value of the spot price and the lagged value of the future price is also considered as an independent variable. Though there are three variables, I don't call it because lagged value of the future price is associated with the future price, current future price, and the lagged value of the spot price is again influencing the spot price, present spot price itself. That is why I consider this model as a bivariate model. We don't call it as a univariate model. This model is called as the univariate model. See here, the way the model is written, Y is the exchange rate. Let us assume exchange rate as an example. So today's exchange rate is dependent on YT minus 1. That is beta coefficient of yesterday's exchange rate plus beta coefficient of day before yesterday's coefficient. Like this, it runs to n number of lags. There can be any number of lags which are considered in this particular model, but if a value of a variable assumes its own lags as its independent variables or its own past values as independent variables, we call it as a univariate model. This is very critical, very much important for us to understand what kind of models will suit what kind of analysis. If you have a bivariate model, there are two variables. I'm not talking about the lagged values, or even I can take the lagged values, there is nothing wrong. If I talk about a bivariate or a multivariate model, when it comes to time series data, you would, I believe that you all are aware about the different types of data sets, that is time series, cross-section and panel data. So when we are working with time series data, the dynamic time series data models, that is vector autoregression, vector error correction, Jones and co-integration, or then you have the Granger causality, autoregressive distributed lag, all these models will be suitable for a multivariate analysis or a bivariate analysis. Along with this, you can even use OLS and multiple regression also. Mostly when it comes to if the nature of the data set is cross-section, when it is bivariate, you use OLS. When it is multivariate, you use multiple regression. And panel data is slightly different. The panel data analysis are quite different from the ordinary the time series analysis in cross-section, where you use the techniques like pooled OLS, fixed effect panels, the random effect panels, dynamic panels. There are different ways. This panel data you will be discussing on the last day of this workshop, so you will be knowing what is a panel data, how it is used, what kind of analysis is done with the panel data. Coming to the most important one, univariate analysis. The most popular and powerful univariate tool or model which is available to analyze the time series data. Time series data only you can use this univariate model is the ARIMA model. ARIMA model can be either ARMA, ARMA or ARIMA. These are two models. Both models are similar only there is a difference. The I is missing in ARMA, whereas in ARIMA I is there. I will tell you what is the significance of this I in the future slide. So this model, this ARIMA model, is considered to be a most powerful tool for predicting, forecasting the future of a data, where it will assume the past value of the data itself. Okay, as I told you, this tool was introduced by Box-Jenkins in the year 1976, and this model is used for short-run forecasting. And one important thing we should understand is there are two types of forecasting. One is for a short run, the other is for a long run. ARIMA model will help you in short-run forecasting. It will not support us in long-run forecasting. Let us say, for instance, if I have, the past 3 months GDP data or census data. With that, I cannot predict the next 3 months. I cannot predict the next 3 weeks. Maybe I'll be able to predict 3 days or 5 days, so on. It is like this. So the ARIMA model, when you use an ARIMA model for forecasting, the forecasting period will be short because this model will be more appropriate for the short run than the longer run. So ARIMA is a univariate model. Please understand, ARIMA is a univariate model where the variable uses its own lag to predict its future. Coming to more clear understanding of the ARIMA model or ARIMA model, as I told you, it is a univariate analysis, and it obtains its past information, or the information obtained from the past is used to predict the future or forecast the future. So past behavior is used to predict. It is take a small example. I'll just give you a live example. There are children when they when they write their board examination, 10th, 11th, and 12th. A child would have secured, in the 12th standard, he would have secured 65% average score in all his papers. It doesn't mean that, if he had secured somewhere around 60 to 65% in his 10th standard, he has secured something similar to it in 11th standard. Obviously, it is expected that he will secure similar marks in the 12th standard, because his past behavior will influence the present. He is not a very bright student. That may in turn affect the future also, wherein by he also he obtains similar marks in the future. Okay, so this is a small example for ARIMA. So where the past information is used to obtain the future, or I am seeing my child securing on an average 75% in all her exams continuously. So I cannot expect my child to secure 95% in the board exam. Maybe I can expect my child to get 80% in the board exam. That is all I can do, because the past behavior is clear, evident. With that, I'm able to predict what will be the future. Okay. So I told you the variable is regressed. That is the dependent variable. That is the future value is regressed by the past value, lagged value. So the lagged values are independent variables which are regressed on the present value, where in the present value or the future value is influenced by the lagged values. So these are some important things. This model is also used for decision making. You can if you work on the ARIMA model, if you make a forecast of what will be the stock prices in the near future, that is next 2 days or 3 days or 4 days, you will be able to make a buy or sell decision. These models are used by even government agencies for predicting policy making the near future. Even if you look at the real-time scenario, when COVID, the corona outbreak was there, and there were a lot of articles which came up where they've used ARIMA model to, identify. ARIMA model to identify the COVID, to predict the number of COVID cases in different locations. So even this can be used to predict in the next 1 week or next 10 days what will be the number of cases I can expect in a particular locality or a particular city or a district, using this ARIMA model, and that can be used for decision making. When I know there is going to be a increase in the quantum of COVID cases, as the government, I can take appropriate measures or decision to make a control over the situation. So this particular model is also used for decision making, though it is for a short run, but still this is a powerful, since it is a very powerful tool, it is also used for decision making. So when I say ARIMA model, ARIMA or ARMA, there are two things, components which are common. ARMA or ARIMA, there are two things which are component. This particular model works on those two components. One is the AR model, other is the MA model. So what is AR? Auto-regressive or auto-regression. You can call it as auto-regressive model. AR is auto-regressive. So what is auto-regressive? The past value, yesterday's value, day before yesterday's value.
You're not audible, ma'am. Excuse me, ma'am. You're not audible.
Sir, somebody has muted me. I don't know who it is. Okay, that is okay. I hope you are listening till auto-regressive model, if I'm not wrong.
Yes, ma'am. That
Okay.
much we heard. Yeah.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you. So auto-regressive model. So when I say auto-regressive model, it represents the past value, the lagged values, yesterday's price, day before yesterday's price, last month's sale, previous month's sale. Okay. Let us, if we are in January 2021, December sales, November sales, October sales, all these things are auto-regressors. So the past values. When I use the past values, I call it as AR. It is denoted as AR. How do I write a basic equation? You can see here YT. YT always represents the present, the future value of, the current value of T at time T, current value of Y at time T. This notation, wherever you see YT, it means it's a time series data. If it is a cross-section data, the same thing will be represented as YI. It will not be represented as YT. Any research article, if you see an equation with YT, it means that, or another variable name and T, it means that it is a time series data, is equals to alpha is nothing but the intercept plus beta into YT minus 1. That is one past lag, one previous lag, plus error term. Error is present error. So that is why it is mentioned as ET, not as ET minus 1. So present error. Because though we use the past information to predict the present information, there may be some missing information, or there may be some certain unexplained factors which will still influence the present value of the variable. So that is why we write this equation like this. Okay, so the generalized equation of the AR model will be YT is equals to alpha naught, that is intercept, plus beta 1 YT minus 1 plus beta 2 YT minus YT minus 2 plus it will continue up to beta naught YT minus P, that is n number of lags, any number of lags. It could be 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, the last lag, that is YT minus P plus present error, that is ET. The next is the moving average model, that is, I told you ARMA, the term itself talks about two components. One is auto-regressive, the other is moving average. What is this moving average? Moving average represents the error term. Why this moving average error term is occurring is, generally when you look into the stock market analysis, the simple moving average is a powerful tool. They used to calculate the moving average, and they try to understand the impact of the, they try to use that moving average for few analysis, buying and selling decision and all. When I calculate the moving average, it varies from person to person. One person may take a 3-day moving average, and another person will take 5-day moving average, somebody will take 7 days, somebody will take 14 days. So the moving average keeps changing. The value, the average value what you get also keeps changing. There is no concrete, nobody has stated only you should consider this value as the moving average. This is a standard value. There is no concrete data for that. So what we do, so we consider that as an error, and that error term is also included in this component, and we call it as the moving average component, the error term. Or otherwise you can say, let us assume that for the past 3 days there was a rainfall, and it is predicted that today also there is a rainfall, but fortunately today it didn't rain. Then I go back and I analyze. Day before the last 3 days, gradually there has been a decrease in the rainfall. So the quantum of decrease in the rainfall I didn't take into consideration. That is an error which is influenced. I have forecasted it will rain today also, but it didn't rain because I missed out a value, or I missed out something. I committed an error which has affected the present. Okay, so basically moving average refers to the error terms. So the model, how a moving average will be written in an equation is yt, that is present value of the variable, is equals to alpha naught plus, here I have written this notation. If you want, you can use this notation. This represents delta, or you can write as gamma. Any value you can give any notation, because for AR I'm writing as beta. Again, if I write beta, you will get confused. So I'm writing this delta notation. So delta 1 plus ET minus 1. ET minus 1 represents the past error plus the present error. So when I generalize this particular model, the equation will be like this. Yt is equals to alpha naught plus delta 1 into ET minus 1, and it will continue to delta Q ET minus Q plus ET. ET is the present error. Even in the present time, there can be an error. There will be a difference between the actual and the forecasted because of several other events happening around us. We may not know why that error, that difference occurred. So coming to the ARMA model, how an ARMA model will be written. So it will, when I say ARMA model, when AR and MA comes together, it takes its own past value and its own past errors in predicting its own future. Okay, my own past values and my own past error is whatever mistakes I've done in the past, whatever results I've obtained, both are taken together to predict what will be my future. So it will be written as yt is equals to alpha naught plus beta 1 yt minus 1 plus delta et minus 1 plus et. Et will always be there in this particular model, not only in ARIMA model, whichever model in econometrics you see, et will always be there. To generalize, alpha yt is equals to alpha naught plus beta 1 yt minus 1 plus delta 1 et minus 1, and it continues up to beta p yt minus p plus, that is the number of lags. It depends on the number of lags, plus delta q into et minus q. So it is it depends on the lag, and you should be the why I have used p and q is, whenever you write an ARIMA model, there will be three alphabets which are used: P, D, and Q. P represents AR term, Q represents MA term. That is why I've written here also P and Q. Okay, like I said, AR means auto-regressive. That is represented as P, and MA is moving average, which is represented as Q. So coming to the difference between a ARMA model and ARIMA model. What is the difference between ARIMA and ARMA? The I is the difference. So AR, MA remains the same. The I alone varies. What is this I? I represents the order of integration. I believe that Sudha ma'am was discussing with you about the order of integration. Can anyone of you tell me what is order of integration? Any one of you, can you please respond? What is order of integration?
Level of differencing.
Exactly, ma'am. Thank you so much. It is the order of differencing, or at the level at which it is getting difference. So, you were discussing about stationary series. When I take the Nifty prices, closing prices of Nifty, generally the closing prices of Nifty will have a random walk, will have the pattern of a random walk. It may be without drift, it sometimes may be even with drift. And if I plot the Nifty series for last 10 years, definitely it is going to be random walk with drift. If I plot it for the last 3 months, it will be random walk without drift. It can be in any pattern. So when I difference the data, the moment I difference the data, my data becomes
Ma'am?
Yes, sir?
Ma'am, you are not at all audible. It's a lot of echo. Hello.
Sir, but here it's audible very well, sir. Maybe at your side you may have some difficulty, I think.
Sir, please excuse me for a minute.
Ma'am, can we call as the root process for time series analysis?
Sorry, sir. Please tell me, sir. So can you please repeat your question?
Yeah. Can we call as the root process unit for time series analysis?
Root process analysis for time series analysis. Yes, sir. It is nothing but differencing the data. When I difference the data, it is called as order of integration. That is obtaining stationarity. When our data, raw data is available with me, I difference the data and I obtain stationarity. When I difference, it achieves the order of integration 1, the first order difference. First order difference, they call it a second order difference. So if I the current value minus the past today's price minus yesterday's price minus day before yesterday's price, this is first order difference. Second order means difference, difference of difference. So when data is difference, it obtains the order of integration 1. Okay, that is the significance, that is the difference between ARMA model and ARIMA model. This I represents order of integration. It is nothing but the first order differencing or the second order differencing of the data. If it is I, it means that the moment if you see, in an article, it is written as ARIMA. It will be represented as I told you P, Q, D, it will be given. If I say 1, 1, 1, okay, AR is 1, I is 1, MA is 1. I is 1 means it is first difference. It is the data has obtained the order of first difference. That is how it is basically considered. This is the major difference. Now, for example, I was talking you about the series Nifty, closing prices of Nifty. If I use the closing prices of Nifty, my data basically will be non-stationary. In order to obtain stationarity, I will convert my data into first order difference, and this order of integration will be present for my data set. But if I'm using the return data of Nifty, if I'm directly taking the return series, I'm not taking the closing prices, I'm taking the daily return series. The series itself will be at level itself, it will be stationary. So in that cases, my model will not be ARIMA, it will be ARMA. Auto-regressive and moving average only will be there. Order of integration, I will not be present. I will be 0. So it is the transformation process of the data from non-stationary to stationary by differencing. The first difference is when I difference the data, when I do the first differencing, my I obtains the value 1. When it goes for second differencing, I obtains the value 2. Hope so far I'm clear. The ARIMA model.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Saranya ma'am, may I please interrupt you?
Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am, I have just one small doubt. When you were talking about the ARIMA model in the beginning about the characteristics, so you mentioned that we are using it for the prediction for a short time period, or
Yes,
maybe for a, yeah, right? So just one example, I just want to clarify that. Suppose I am predicting the bankruptcy of, say, any firm, right? And I want to predict it in a coming 1 or 2 years. So in that situation, can we use ARIMA model?
Yes, ma'am, you can use, even for predicting GDP, I can use ARIMA model, but there are always uncertainties like COVID pandemic, the outbreak of corona. We all know it has drastically affected the GDP of many countries. So when I use this ARIMA for a long run, I say I predict it for 2 years or 3 years or 5 years, such uncertain events will definitely affect my forecast. That is why we say it's not advisable to predict for the long run. It's not that it will not give results. You can predict, but it will not be appropriate.
Okay, so what can we use in that case? If madam, you can just help me.
Ma'am, we can use Arch and Garch models. Garch model is basically used for modeling volatility, ma'am. Tomorrow's section, they will be discussing about that.
Okay, fine. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you. So coming to the ARIMA model, so I told you earlier itself, it will be represented as P, D, Q. P represents the auto-regressive, that is the lags of past value or past values or lagged values. D represents the order of integration. I can be 0, 1 or 2. Mostly it will be either 0 or 1. If you look at the articles, you will get some ideas. Q represents the moving average. So when you see an ARIMA model written as 1, 0, 1, it says that this model is ARMA model, not ARIMA model, where auto-regressor is present, moving average is present, integration is not present. If the same thing is written as 1, 1, 1, it is an ARIMA model where auto-regressor is there, order of integration is there, and moving average is also considered. Coming to the assumptions in the ARIMA model, what are the preliminary assumptions what we have? The basic is the data must be stationary in nature if you want to use this tool. If you want to make a prediction or a forecast for a given data set, you have to ensure whether the data is stationary or not. When I say stationary, it means the mean, variance and covariance is constant. This is the condition for stationarity. The second thing is the data must be free from autocorrelation. It means that the presence of autocorrelation should not be there in the data. If you have autocorrelation in the data, it is not in the data, it is in the residuals. If you see there is an autocorrelation in the residuals, past error keeps on continuously impacting the present error. So the forecast what you are going to make will be not accurate or will not be appropriate. That is why they say residuals should not be autocorrelated. But there must be autocorrelation in the series. That past value must have some information to convey. Otherwise, you will not use ARIMA at all. Autocorrelation in the data is necessary, but autocorrelation in residuals is not required. The data should not have autocorrelation in its residual, but it can be autocorrelated because only when there is meaningful information. Autocorrelation means present is influenced by the past or present has a significant association with the past values. If there is no such association, then you will not be able to use ARIMA because ARIMA is a univariate model where it uses its own lagged values for predicting its own future values. And one more thing, the data must be free from heteroscedasticity. All these things we will check. We'll be checking one by one when we are doing an ARIMA model. At that time, I'll explain you. Heteroscedasticity means conditional mean and variance is conditioned over time. That is, time varying mean and variance is observed in a data. So, or the variance, the past error is influenced in the present error. You can call it, all these things will result in heteroscedasticity because this is heteroscedasticity generally mean as the mean and variance is conditioned over time. That is, if I take 1 month data from today onwards, like let us assume December 2020 data, the mean and the variance would be different when compared to November, October. So that is one problem which is mostly prevalent in all time series data. Majority of the time series data will suffer from heteroscedasticity. And finally, there are two factors, ACF and PACF factors, which are very much important while formulating or estimating an ARIMA model. I hope I think you will remember that we discussed about the Karlogram test. So the Karlogram test will give us the ACF and PACF factors, which will help us to move forward in the ARIMA modeling. The steps, basic general steps which are followed in ARIMA modeling is, first thing is we have to identify the model, then estimate the parameters, that is estimate AR, MA and the order of integration parameters. AR and MA and I should be estimated. Then we have to run the equation. Once the equation is run, from the results you have to do the diagnostic checking. If there is autocorrelation in the residuals, then you have to go back to the estimation. You have to estimate new parameters, then again run the equation, do the residual diagnostic check. When the residuals are free from autocorrelation, you can go ahead and predict the model, or go ahead and do prediction for forecast the values of a variable. Okay, so first thing is identification of the model. As I told you, ACF and PACF plays a very vital role. ACF is nothing but the autocorrelation factor. PACF is the partial autocorrelation factor. ACF tells whether the past values have some meaningful information in predicting the present. So this factor, I will show it to you in the graph and I will explain how it works. And PACF also talks about the association of the present with the past. But it will control the effect of other lagged values. Suppose there are like today's value is there, I'm trying to find the association with yesterday's value. That is one factor. If I want to find out the association of today's value with the day before yesterday's value, then I have to control the effect of today. So if I control the effect, that is yesterday and today, if I control that effect and find out the association of day before yesterday's value and today's value, then it is called as partial autocorrelation factor. This factor is mainly, it's more important whenever we talk about the ARIMA modeling, or otherwise it can also be considered as this model considers the error terms. This model talks about the influence in the influence of the error terms on predicting the present values. You can call it that way also. PACF talks about the error terms, that is the residuals, and ACF talks about the past lagged values. With the spikes, you will be able to understand when there are no significant spikes, it means that the series is white noise. That is, when there are all the spikes are zero, it means that there is no meaningful information. Past data does not have any meaningful information, in helping us to predict the future data. So with the spikes, we will be able to know when it is a series is non-stationary, the spikes will damp out very slowly. It will slowly move from your right to left. And when you have an AR and MA term, you can see some significant spikes in the cardiogram. And in the ARIMA model, also the spikes will damp out, but still you will see significant spikes. At certain point, the spikes will damp out, but significant spikes will be available for us to do the analysis. Test for normality, I think this is from the data, whatever I've done. I will start showing you my data so that it is easy for you all to understand. I have the data set and the same data set has been shared with you all. If you want to work along with me, you can open this data set. Or you want me to show the demonstrate, I will start demonstrating. The data set has been shared. Date and Nifty closing prices for about a year is there. That is 251 observations are there. You can see. If you want, you can work along with me, or shall I go ahead and start demonstrating? Please respond.
I think first you demonstrate and.
Okay, ma'am, I will start demonstrating. In between, if you want to try, I will wait, you can try. So first thing what I need to do is I need to import this data. I need to take this data to the eViews work file. See here, what I'm doing is I'm selecting the Nifty closing prices. I'm not taking the date. Date is not necessary for us. So I'm taking this, copying it, opening the eViews work file, eViews platform. Hope you all are aware about this platform. Yesterday there was a session on this. Giving paste. The moment I say paste, my data set is appearing here. Next. And finish. You want to import? Yes, I'm importing the data. See here, Nifty is available. Let me just open this data and show it to you. Can you all see my data set?
Yes, ma'am.
Hope you all know how to. Thank you so much. So now the first thing, let me check for normality, whether the data is normally distributed or not. Generally, time series data will not be normally distributed, but if you want, we can check and see whether the data is normally distributed or not. To check normality, see, always open the variable and then start doing the analysis. When you open the variable, in the variable window, you have a tab called view. Click on that view, descriptive statistics. There are two things. One is histogram, the other is stats table. If you want it in a table format, stats table will help you. If you want it in a chart format, histogram will help you. So click on this histogram, you can see the data here. The data, it looks like normally distributed, but what is the answer? What does the probability value convey? Can any one of you tell me what does the probability value convey?
Probability is a significant
0.038.
You want
Normally distributed.
want me to magnify?
It is less than
P-value
0.05.
says that it is not normally distributed.
It is not normally distributed. So how do you understand whether it is normally distributed or not normally distributed? Can you please tell me?
By looking into the p-value.
P-value.
If
So
p-value is more than
Which is less than
0.05, we say it is normally distributed.
Okay, so here please understand the H naught. It is more important to understand the H naught because in econometric models, particularly when you use the eView software or the models, each model will have a different H naught. Generally, in statistics, if you say the data is not normal, there is no significant relationship, there is no correlation. This is how the H naught will be written. Whereas here, the author Jogbera has given an H naught as data is normal. Okay, the H naught for a normality test in eViews is data is normal. So since the p-value is less than 0.05, we reject the null hypothesis. Once again, probability value, that is p-value, represents the probability of committing type 1 error. What is type 1 error? Rejecting the null when it is true. When the null hypothesis is true and when I reject it, I'm committing type 1 error. The probability of committing when it is 5%, less than 5%, the probability of committing type 1 error is less than 5%. That is the meaning of this p-value. So the p-value says the data is not normally distributed, and that is the H naught, data is normal, is rejected since the p-value is less than 0.05. Okay, now I'll show you this graph to tell you how the data is distributed. Again, I'm clicking on view and I'm clicking on the graph. By looking at the graph itself, you will be able to understand whether the data is stationary or not stationary. So I'm just giving it as okay. You can see here there is too many fluctuations, and this data assumes the pattern called random walk without drift. This assumes a pattern random walk without drift. See here, this is a point where there is random walk without drift is here, but after a point of time there is a trending data. You can see an upward trend, but still this is a data which has random walk without drift. Hope you all are aware of these concepts which we had discussed yesterday. When I say random walk without drift, sometimes the series will revert back to its many, and sometimes it will participants, please mute your mic. If there is any necessity, you can unmute and talk. Please mute your mic. Okay, so by looking at the data, we can say there is no mean reversion happening continuously. So this is a non-stationary data. Okay, this is the second analysis what I do. The third thing what I do is the Karlogram test to understand whether this data has got some, whether the past values has got some meaningful information to predict the present. Once again, I click on the view tab and I select Karlogram. When I select Karlogram, default it will be at level. I will say okay, whatever lag is mentioned here, that is more than enough for us. Don't change anything here because we have 250 observations. Lag 36 is fine. Say okay. See here, you can see the spikes damping out slowly after a point of time. You can see slow decrease in the spikes. Can you see up to 36? When you see it is slowly damping out.
It's not audible, madam.
Madam, we lost audio.
Sorry, I just had a interruption in between. Okay, so slowly, I didn't say anything beyond this. You can slowly see the spikes damping out. It means that the lagged values will have some kind of an influence on the present value. This also indicates when the spikes are slowly dumping out, this also indicates that there is an the data is non-stationary. I showed you a table. I said when the spikes are slowly dumping out, it means the data is non-stationary. Sometimes you will also have exponential dumping out. You know, first lag will be there, slowly 3, 4, 5. The sixth lag, if you see, there will not be any significant spike. That is called as exponential dumping out. That also will be there. When there is exponential dumping out, that kind of a data, we will not be able to use it for modeling because lags may not have significant information for the future. This PSEF, you can see one significant spike is there. It means the one past error is having a strong influence. So with this particular information, we can understand whether the data is non-stationary and whether this data can be used for doing the whether this data can be used for ARIMA modeling. And you can see all the p-values. What are the p-values conveying here? The H0 here is there is no autocorrelation. Please remember, when you perform a parallelogram test, the H0 is there is no autocorrelation. What does the p-values convey here for us?
For significant, less than 0.05.
All are less than 0.05, so it indicates that there is no autocorrelation is rejected, there is autocorrelation is accepted. And I told you in the assumption itself, stationarity of a series is important. A series being autocorrelated is also necessary when you want to go for ARIMA. Only the errors should not be autocorrelated. Past error should not influence the present error, but series can be autocorrelated. Okay, so basic assumptions. Then now what we need to do. So I told you the data is not stationary with the example of the unit root test. Now we need to convert the existing data into a stationary process. Only then we'll be able to use the data for further analysis. From graph itself, I told you, you can even test it with the unit root. I'm going to the same data set, view unit root. At level data, I'm not doing anything. Here, instead of intercept, I'm choosing none because it has the pattern called random walk without drift. By looking at the graph, you can understand in the trend equation what value you should choose. Let me show you a small example. That is my yesterday's presentation. I was discussing about this. I don't know how many of you were there for that session, because I keep seeing participants asking questions. See, this is how the random walk without drift will be there. If you see a graph like this, this graph has the quality of random walk without drift. If the series is plotted in a graph, if you see this, it has the quality of random walk without drift. So when you are performing unit root test, that is when you are performing unit root test in the EViews, in the trend equation where it is asking for intercept, trend and intercept and none, you have to choose only none. Okay, suppose if the data has this pattern, random walk with drift, that is there is randomness, at the same time there is a trending data, either upward trending or a downward trend, then it means that you have to use intercept. Why? I will tell you why it is intercept. Because the intercept, if you look at this trending data, the intercept will change from one point to the other. Every point, if you analyze the intercept for a time period, the intercept will keep changing. Mean reversion will not happen here. The data will never come back to its mean because it is already having either an upward trend or a downward trend, so it will not come back to its mean. So it means we should choose intercept. There is the presence of intercept is very much clear when you talk about such random walk with the drift series. This is a time trend or a deterministic trend, here you have to use, if you find a data like this, then you have to use trend and intercept. So in the equation, you have to use trend and intercept if the graph looks like this. Okay, so I hope it is easy for you to remember. When the graph is having a pattern called random walk without drift, you have to use none. Random walk with drift, it is you have to use intercept, and when it is a trending data, you have to use trend and intercept. I will give you another example. I plotted Nifty data. It is having random walk without drift pattern. Nifty can also have random walk with drift when is instead of plotting Nifty for a short period of time, if I take 10 years Nifty data and I plot it in one graph, the graph definitely will have a upward trend. So it will have randomness, and at the same time it will show an upward trend. It will not revert back to its mean. That time I have to use intercept. Okay, hope it is clear. So I'm doing the unit root test with none at level, the raw data, so at level and none, and I'm giving okay. Now you can see the unit root results. The unit root results say that anybody is aware what is, you can see, I'm just magnifying and showing it to you. Many will have a difficulty in GTM platform to see the normal screen. So the unit root probability is 0.83. 0.83. The null hypothesis for a unit root test. I've used the ADF test. Please just see here when I'm doing the unit root, it is asking for the test type. I've given augmented Dickey filler. Augmented Dickey filler is the most popular and widely used unit root test. There are other tests like Philip-Perron test, KPSS and all. Philip-Perron, all are similar only. Everybody is talking about only unit root. Philip-Perron and ADF both are conveying the same information. The null hypothesis states that the series has a unit root, that is, it is non-stationary. The series is non-stationary, it has a unit root. When the unit root is present, it means that the series is non-stationary. Okay, and the alternate hypothesis is there is no unit root, the series is stationary. This is the basic null hypothesis for ADF and Philip-Perron test, whereas in case of KPSS test, the null hypothesis will vary. In the KPSS test, the null hypothesis says the series is stationary, there is no unit root. So you have to be aware of what is the null hypothesis before performing any test. And ADF, since it is most popular and widely used and a proven test, I'm also going with the ADF test. I'm not trying with any other test. If you want, you can even try with Philip-Perron. You can try KPSS and see what results you get. Okay, so ADF test results are here. The probability value is 0.83, which indicates it is above, it is more than the significant value. So I have to accept the null. The null says the data is not stationary. That is, there is a unit root which is present. Okay. So now I should convert this data into stationary for all my further analysis. So what do I do? To convert my data into a stationary process, I need to go for differencing. You can do one more thing also. Before going for differencing, you may have a confusion whether to difference or take the returns, which formula to execute. So there is an easy method. Just open the data. Okay, go to view, say unit root. Instead of choosing at level, just select first difference and give OK. What is the answer? The probability value is 0.00, which indicates that this data is, the null is rejected, that the data is non-stationary is rejected and the data becomes stationary. Now it is very clear at the first difference itself my data will become stationary. So there is no need for me to go for logarithmic form or return form, log returns or return of Nifty. Nothing is required. It is more than enough if I difference the data. So what I do I have to generate a new series. I cannot work with the old data. So I have to work with the new data. So to work with the new data, what I do, I can either use this GNR tab here or go to quick and say generate series to generate a new series. I want the difference data. So I am naming my variable as dNifty, D-N-I-F-T-Y is equals to, whenever you're giving the variable name, please be very careful. You have to give the right variable name because software is more case sensitive. So D of N-I-F-T-Y. D of Nifty. D of means difference of Nifty. Difference means yesterday's price minus today's price minus yesterday's price. Yesterday's price minus day before yesterday's price. So that is how it will consider. So I have given OK. I can see a new series called dNifty. So click, select the data, open the data. First, always it will be not applicable because when I have the first value, I don't have the 0th value, so it is automatically NA. So that is okay, no problem. So we have got the differenced data. Now for this differenced data, we will perform unit root test. Before performing unit root test, let us use the graph and see how the data is looking. See here how the data is looking. Earlier how the graph was looking and now how the graph is looking. If I draw a line between the 0 divided, I can see every time there is a variation, but still it will come back to its original mean. That mean is nothing but 0 here. Assuming the mean as 0 and drawing a straight line, divide the series into 2. Every time when that it goes up or comes down, it will revert back to its mean. That is why it is said it is stationary in nature, or you can call it as mean reversion is happening. Okay, now let me test the unit root for the differenced data. Earlier I just showed you when it is first difference what is the answer. Let me show you what will be the answer for a differenced data. Go to view, unit root. Here it is not first difference because I have taken the difference series itself. I'm not taking Nifty and I'm not plotting, I'm not finding the unit root for first difference. No, I've taken the first difference data series, whatever I've generated, I've taken the data. So automatically it will become at level, none is going to remain the same and say, because mean reversion is happening, so I have to keep only none. I cannot use intercept or trend and intercept. So keep OK. I will get the answer. The same probability value when I tested the unit root, instead of giving at level, I gave first difference. The same answer I received. So it indicates that the data is stationary. I hope I'm clear till this. If you have any questions, you may ask me now. That is what I plotted here. You can see the parallelogram results. Whatever I'm doing now for you with the Nifty data, the same I've done, and I'll put all the results in the PPT for your reference. I've put here. See the unit root testing I've done, the stationary series, how it will look like, the stationary result and the stationary series, how it will look like. All these things I just copied and pasted here. Shall I proceed to the next thing? Okay, sir. Thank you so much. So next thing is I need to, I need to identify the model. First, my assumptions are met. The data is stationary. My assumption is met. Now I need to go and check the correlation, autocorrelation effect with the help of a parallelogram test. Only when there is a meaningful information conveyed by the past lab, I will be able to use it. So I'm going and using it. So go to the parallelogram, view parallelogram. Again, I'm repeating, I'm using it for the difference data. dNifty is the difference of Nifty. This is a series what I have created. For this series, I'm going to do the parallelogram test. View parallelogram at level only. Don't change anything here. Give OK. I will zoom this alone for you because only when I zoom it, you will be able to see few things. There are few dotted lines. There is a middle, there is a line, and there are two dotted lines to the right and the left. These two dotted lines are called as confidence intervals. You can see the first lag value is touching the confidence interval but is not out of the confidence interval. So which are the values which are outside, which has a significant spike outside the confidence interval? Can you please tell me, looking at this graph?
Yeah, for the fifth one, ma'am.
Fifth one, yes, ma'am. Thank you so much.
And even for sixth one on the left hand side for autocorrelation, it is out.
Yes, for autocorrelation, sixth one is also out. The for PACF, fifth one, and for ACF, 5 and 6 both are outside the value. See here the probability value, it is less than 0.05. It indicates that there is autocorrelation. There is no autocorrelation is rejected. There is autocorrelation in the series. So why I showed you this is when you're identifying the model ARMA structure, you have to be aware of significant spikes. Only then you will be able to estimate the parameters. So let me go back to my PowerPoint slide and I will show you. These are the things which we have discussed so far. I did the normality test. I showed you the graph, how the graph will look like for a non-stationary data. Then I showed you the parallelogram results for the same data set and the unit root test for the same data set. Then I showed you when the data is converted into a differenced series, what will be the unit root analysis result and what will be the graph, how will the graph look like. Then the same parallelogram is also demonstrated for you with the significant spikes. See here in the presentation I have written something as AR5, 1, 5, 1, 6, 6, 1, 5, 6, 1, 6. I will take, as I assume that even 6 will have a significant influence because it is also slightly beyond the confidence interval level. So I have taken these parameters. That is when I say ARIMA 5, 1, 5. It means that AR5 order of integration is 1 and MA 5. 5, 1, 6 means AR5 integration 1 and MS6. This is how you will estimate the parameters. You know, before going for identifying the right model, you will estimate the parameters. You will perform a small analysis and you will try to find out what are the results. So I've given you some basics here. Then I've gone for model estimation. So when I say model estimation, I have to run whatever parameters I have identified from the parallelogram has to be run in the regression equation. So how do I run this in the regression equation? So with this data, I will show you how to run the regression equation. For time being, I will close this. Okay, you all know where to write a regression equation. Click on quick. You have something called as estimate equation. Click on this. This tab will appear. This tab will appear. Here is where I need to write my equation. So what is my equation I'm going to write? My series is difference Nifty. So D Nifty. Okay, space C represents constant. My dependent variable is D Nifty. Difference of Nifty is my dependent variable. I'm writing a regression equation only. Space. Now I need to write all my independent variables. That is the lagged values. Because this is a univariate model, it is assuming its own lag as its influencing variables. So what are my lagged values? I write AR, open the bracket, write 5 because 5 is the model from the parallelogram. I felt fifth lag has got a significant spike. For MA also, fifth lag has got a significant spike. So I write this equation and give. I will not change anything. It is least square only. It is a regression equation only. I am writing and giving it as OK. See here, I have the results. Hope you all can see the results. I will tell you what are the parameters which are very much important in this particular. This is the result for your easy reference. AR5 is the term, MA5 is the term. We should always ensure the coefficients are always less than 1. The value of the coefficient should be, AR coefficient and MA coefficient should be always less than 1. Mostly it will be less than 1. Only in extreme cases it will not be like that. We have to look at the probability value of AR and MA. Constant is basically not much bothered. The intercept, we are not much concerned about the intercept whenever we are talking about the ARIMA modeling. So we have to look at the probability value. The probability value for both the terms should be significant. Only if it is significant, it means that these two variables, these two lagged values have some association, some meaningful information in predicting the future value, or it will be helpful in predicting the past. Then you have to look for the adjusted R-square value. Then you have something called as AIC, attack info criterion, and SWOT info criterion. These two values should be also cross verified. Okay, so this is one result that is also displayed here in my PPT. Hopefully, I think you can see AR5 and MA5 for which I've given the data. For which I've given the results here. So you can see AR and MA5 results are here. Can you see this?
Yes, ma'am, it is visible.
AR and MA5 results are given here. Here I've identified several parameters, 5 and 5, 5 and 6, 6 and 5, 6 and 6. There are so many things which I have identified. Now what I need to do is I need to use one by one in the equation. So I go back to the Hebew's equation once again. Now I'm not going to go for quick because I've already estimated the equation. Here in the variable window, there is a tab called estimation. Click on this tab. Whatever equation I wrote earlier is appearing here for me. Now I want to introduce the next term. Earlier it was 5 and 5. Now it is 5 and 6. You can ask me where did that one go? Order of integration need not be represented here because the data set, whatever we are considering for analysis itself is different data. So order of integration need not be mentioned. Only AR and MA terms has to be mentioned. So my MA term is going to be, instead of 5, it is going to be 6. Okay, and I'm giving okay. Again, I have got the result and the values are significant only. The P values are significant for both AR5 and MA6. When AR is 5, MA is 6, the values are significant. This result is also required for me. I've taken, copied and pasted that result here. That result is also pasted here. You can see AR5 and MA6. Then the next equation I told you, AR6 and MA is 5. Then finally AR6 and MA6. For everything, we have to run the equation and the result has to be copied here. Okay, once again I'm giving estimate. Now instead of AR5, I'm making it as AR6. Close the bracket. MA5. Give OK. The results are there. You can see again it is significant only. The P values are significant. You can take this result also, and I have pasted the same result here in my PPT. I will tell you why I pasted all these results. How will I estimate the right model? I am giving choices. I do all these things, perform the equations I'm telling you, but you have to know which is the appropriate value. Then now I have to go and do the next thing. One thing we should be very much particular. If the P value, the probability value for a lagged term is not significant, you will not consider that term. Suppose if I'm using AR6 and MA5, and if the probability value for MA5 is not significant, then MA5 will not be considered for analysis. Okay, once again, the last one I need to estimate. So I'm giving estimate. Now I need to estimate the next model where, sorry, I deleted AR6 and MA is again 6. So you can see the answer here. I'm just magnifying all this time. The probability values were significant, whereas here you can see for MA6 the probability value is insignificant. So it means that you cannot use this MA6 for predicting the future. Okay, so as we were discussing from the Karlogram spike, MA6 doesn't carry any meaningful information for predicting the future. So all the results are here displayed here. I will show you a small table. This is the model table, model estimation table. All the results, whatever I have obtained and written here. What is important? The first thing is significance of the probability value. How many our AR and MA terms you are considering? The significance of the AR and MA terms, the probability value for the AR and MA terms should be significant. Only then you will be able to consider that value. So significance of the probability value is required. Then we have something called a sigma square, adjusted R square. Then you have the AIC and SIC values. Okay, I have the AIC and SIC values, ACAC info criterion and Swatch info criterion values. So what I have done is I've taken the data from the result window. See here, the result window is here. See here, both the values are significant. That is for 5 and 5, AR5 and MA5, the values are significant. Here also it is significant. So if you see, sorry. Here I've written when it is AR 5, 1, 5, that is ARIMA Y 5, 1, 5, both my p values, that is the value for AR5 and MA5 are significant. So I've written it as 2. Then again the next model ARIMA 5, 6, that is AR is 5, MA is 6, both are significant. Then ARIMA model where AR is 6 and MA is 5, that is 2, both the values are significant. And the last model 6, 6, only one value was significant, the other value was not significant. Okay, you can ask me why, here 6 and 6 is not significant, but here 6 is significant, because when I say AR past value, MA is the error. So past, that is 5th value and the 6th error is okay, whereas 6th value and the 6th error doesn't have a significant information. That is why it is coming like this for us. Okay, then I have taken the sigma square values from the tables. You can see the sigma square values from the table. Here it is 34,000, 34,517. The data is here. I think I made a small mistake. Okay, here it is 34 and odd, 34,000 and odd value is here. So this value I've taken it and I've given it in the table. All the sigma square values are mentioned here. You can see the sigma square values here. Okay, for every model, whatever was there in the output window, that value I've taken and written it here. Adjusted R square value I've written, AIC and SIC values. I've just brought in all the values. Why I've brought in all these values is only when you look at these values in a table form, you will be able to identify which is better. Or when you are working on a research paper, you have to make note of all these values to understand which model is a better model for prediction. So there are certain conditions when we talk about these values. One such condition is the conditions are given below. The first one is significance. Whichever model has more significant values you have to take. So when I'm considering two terms, AR and MA terms, when both the terms are significant, then I consider that model, because probability value of that is they have meaningful information for the future. Whereas here in the last model, only one variable was significant, the other variable was not significant. So these three models, the first level of rejection happens here. These three models are, when compared to this model, these three are better. Next, I have the sigma square values and adjusted R square. When I have the sigma square values, it is very much important for me to have the lowest sigma square. The variance, the sigma square should be as low as possible. You can ask me to 32,000 and 33,000 itself is high. Yes, but when I compare the three models, whichever model has got the lowest sigma square value, that model we have to consider. If I look at the data, this model AR 5,6 has ARIMA 5,1,6 has a lower sigma square value, and the R square value has to be taken into consideration. Here R square should be always higher. Adjusted R square for whichever model it is high, that model is considered. Similarly, the AIC SIC values, it is expected that AIC and SIC values should be minimum for a model to be better estimate. For a model to be a better fit, we have to ensure that AIC and SIC values are lower. So when I compare these values, I understand ARIMA model 5,1,6 is a better model for prediction. Okay, so now I move on to the next step. What I do then, as a result of the identification, I run that result in the equation. See here, earlier I did this. Now I have identified that a model 5,6 is significant. Okay, go back to the equation. Okay, right here, write the equation here. So I have to give as AR5. The model which had AR5 and MA6 was a better model for prediction. MA6 give okay. The output is here. Now I told you the residual should be free from autocorrelation. Values can be autocorrelated if we in ARIMA, but the residual should not be autocorrelated. That is first thing which I need to check before going for heteroscedasticity. The basic test what I need to do is residual diagnostics. So where do I do the residual diagnostics? Click view in the variable window. You can see something called as only on the output. Wherever you get this output, estimated output, then only you have to go ahead. Otherwise, you will not see the residual diagnostics. View, you have residual diagnostics, and there are two things, parallelogram Q and parallelogram squared residuals. Parallelogram Q statistics, the first one which I want to click. It will ask for a default lag, say okay. See here, the probability values are greater than 0.05. There is no autocorrelation in the residuals is accepted. There are no significant spikes also. You can see not much of significant spikes. There are one or two, and even it is within the confidence interval. So can I leave with this? No, I need to perform another residual diagnostic check. That is residual diagnostic parallelogram squared residuals. See here, the p-values are insignificant. Earlier it was insignificant, so I accepted the null. Here the p-values are significant, which says that I have to reject the null. The reject is residuals are autocorrelated. So what do I do now? I've already done something and I've developed a model. Now I have to move on for the adjusted model. Already I've found a base. AR value of 5 and MA value of 6 has got a significant information for predicting the future. Now from that I have to move on to the adjusted model, which will consider the other lags. There may be some other lags which also will have a meaningful information. So if I look at the significant lag from the squared residuals window, there are two things. One is second lag, the other is the seventh lag. I'm leaving 9, 10 and all. You can ask me why you have left out 9 and 10. There is something called as parsimonious. When I say parsimonious, the number of there must be it is always essential to consider few variables and have a effective forecast than having numerous variables but not an appropriate forecast. So the parsimony always refers to having appropriate parameters, few parameters to predict the future in a better way. So that is why I'm leaving the 9, 10 and all. I'm taking the second lag and seventh lag. I see seventh lag and second lag has got a significant spike here. Now it becomes essential for me to test the second lag and the seventh lag. Since I didn't have time to put all the outputs in the PPT. I've given few outputs in the Word document. See here, you can see here. You can see the outputs here in the Word document. Because of lack of time, you know, I couldn't edit all these things. I've given it to you for your reference. So AR2, already we know a model 5 and 6 is a model which we have finalized, but we have to adjust because there is correlation in the residuals. So AR2, M5 are the two terms, and MA6. This will be one equation, and I will get the output for that. The next equation will be, I'm introducing one by one only. I have to do. I cannot introduce 2 in AR and 2 in MA, and I cannot see the results. That will not give me appropriate results. Some values may even become insignificant in that process. So slowly I have to do. I have to introduce 2 in AR and see what is the impact. Then introduce 2 in MA and see how it is impacting. So the second equation will be AR5, MA2 and 6. Okay. Then I had 7th lag also. So the equation will go like this: AR5, 7, MA6, AR5, MA6, and 7. So why I'm going in this order itself is like only when the second lag occurs, the third lag will come, fourth lag will come, fifth lag will come. So it is better to go with the order, whatever the numerical order. So we will not commit any mistakes. If I have 7 first, 6 later, then 5 later, that will not be that appropriate. Okay. So that is why we are going in this particular order, where we will be talking about, we will run one by one equation, and the output will be taken and pasted. I will show you all these things. I'm going to estimate equation. I'm writing the equation once again for your understanding. My series is D Nifty, difference Nifty, NIFTY, space C, space. I have to introduce all my terms one by one. In the adjusted ARIMA model, there are two things. One is 2 and 7. 2, 7 second lag, and the 7th lag has to be introduced. So I have written AR2, okay, AR2. Then already estimated model is AR5 and AR. Sorry, it's not AR, it is MA. It is MA6. 5 and 6 is already, we have identified that model to be an effective model. Now we are introducing 2 and 7 to the same model. So give OK. I have got the result here. So this result you see here in this Word document. I've given all the results here. You can cross check with the data. Okay, then the same output I have to run. You can see what is the output conveying. Are all the 3 values significant? Is all the 3 values significant? AR2, AR5 and MA5. All the 3 values are significant?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, all the 3 values are significant. So yes, I can consider this model.
Ma'am, like the charger is about to die, I guess.
Sorry, 1 minute. Yes. Yes, sir. So you were asking me any question?
Saying that plug in the charger, madam, your battery is about to die. I think there is some message in between. So you might be.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, I think all are significant.
Okay, sir, thank you. So the output is here. The same output I've given it in the Word document also. Okay, I've given the same result in the Word document also. I will again consider the significant values. I will look for the sigma square values, and I will also look for the From the sigma square value, I will look into the adjusted R square, and I will look into the AIC, SIC values. Like this, I will be running one by one. All the equations I will be running. Since I've already done it, I will just show one more equation alone, and I will stop. See here, the next equation I will write it for AR7. That is AR. Instead of 2, I'm taking that 7th lag, AR5, AR7, and MA6. This result also is taken into consideration. All the values are taken into consideration. See. See the values, all the values are significant. You can see all the terms to be significant. So like this, one by one, I will take all the values of all the models, and I've given it in my presentation here. The adjusted ARIMA model. See here, the adjusted ARIMA model results are given here in this particular table. So the models, every time I'm running the same equation, I'm running it as AR2, AR5, MA6, AR5, MA2, MA6. When it comes to this, AR5, AR7, MA6. Again, AR5, MA6, MA7. This is how I will write the information. Whatever I write, D-Nifty, after whatever I write, the first variable, EVOs, even if you don't specify which is the dependent variable, the moment the first variable what you write in the equation is considered as the dependent variable. So D-Nifty, the moment I write, whether I write constant or I don't write constant, the moment I write D-Nifty, it will assume D-Nifty as the dependent variable. So whatever I write, AR5, AR6, AR7, AR2, all these values are considered as independent variables, independent lagged values which has an influence on the dependent variable. So I have written all the values here. I have seen in all the things, all the 3 values are significant. So I have written all the 4 models. It has significant values. Then the sigma square values are also I've written it here. Adjusted R square values, AIC and SIC values. As I told you earlier itself, the number of values which are significant, more number of, as all the terms are significant, it is always better for the model. And sigma square should be the lowest, adjusted R square should be the highest. AIC and SIC should be the minimum. So from this, all the values which are available, I conclude that the model, that is AR5, 7, MA6 is an appropriate model. It's the adjusted ARIMA model. Okay, AR5, AR7 and MA6 as an appropriate model for further analysis. So now what I do is, I go back, I do again estimate. Because every time we have to do residual checking, because earlier I did with the model 5 and 6, I did residual check, I found significant lags. Now again I'm adjusting the model based on the requirement. So again I have to write the variables AR5, AR7 and MA6. Is the model. Okay, this is the output for the model. I can see all the 3 values to be significant. The sigma square when compared to the other to be lower, R square to be higher, AIC and SIC also to be little lower. So now I have to go ahead and check the residuals. I have to check whether this model is appropriate for me or not. So to check that, I have to click on view. From the output window, I have to click on view. I have to click residual diagnostics, Karlogram Q statistics. When I was using the model 5, 6 itself, my Karlogram Q statistics said that there is no significant autocorrelation. So this test is again repeat the same thing. Here Parallelogram squared residuals. Once again, I'm doing. Still, I see some values which are having influence. Again, even after running the model 5,7 AR, 5 and 7 MA6, I still see autocorrelation in the residuals. Now again, I have to 7 is already been considered, so I have to go for 2. So I have to go for 2. 2 alone has to be considered because I have to use this 2 also into the equation. So you can see the same thing. I've given it here in the output Word file. Okay. So after running all these things, the model was estimated as 576 was the appropriate model. Then residual check was done. See here, the residual check output is given to you. The residual squared residuals result is given to you. Though significant spike is found in 2. The second squared residual, again lag number 2 is again showing a significant association. So now what I do is I develop another model, that is I introduce 2, that is I write it as AR2, 5 and 7, which is already there, MA6 is already there. This is one, and the second way of writing the equation will be AR 5 and 7, MA2 and 6. Okay, this is how I keep writing the information. So again, I will show you, I will directly go to the table. I'm not writing the equation once again because I've written this equation several times. We also need to do a forecast. So I'm directly going to my presentation. From the output, I've given the output here. When you are working, you can also simultaneously check whether you're getting these results. Okay, so this output has been taken there to the PPT, and see the table is given here. The second adjusted ARIMA model with 2, 5, 7 and 6, 5, 7, 2 and 6 is given here. And I can see again, I consider the same thing, significance, sigma square, R square, AIC and SIC. I see R square to be maximum at in this model, that is 0.88, the other one is 0.84, and I see the sigma square also to be lower, and all the 4 values are significant. Now I go ahead and I decide to write this equation. I decide to use this equation for further analysis. AR2, AR5, AR7 and MA6. So I go back to the eViews platform. I am writing this equation, estimate equation. Write this equation here. Okay, AR2, AR5, AR7, MA6. I've written this equation and I'm giving enter. Okay, I've received the results. I will show you the results once again. See the results here. All the 4 values are significant. 0.02, 0.00, 0.04 only, 0.02. All the values are significant. Sigma square values are taken for consideration. Okay. So this is done. Now again I need to check my residuals, whether their residuals is autocorrelated or not. Okay, go back to view. Parallelogram Q statistics, I'm not going to check because earlier itself it has given me a result that there is no autocorrelation. I'm just going to check squared residuals. I check the squared residuals. Again, I'm seeing significant spikes. Already I've included term 2 and term 7, so I'm ignoring here. Basically, it should also be, the p-value should be greater than 0.05. That is, you should accept the null. That is, there is no autocorrelation in residuals. Since I've already included these lagged values in my equation, here, though it is telling me there is still autocorrelation in the residuals, I'm proceeding further to forecast the existing model. because the data set what I've taken is Nifty data. Basically, there is an underlying factor that when you take a data which has got higher frequency, the residuals will be autocorrelated. Generally, the past error and the present error will be correlated. So it will always have an issue. The reason why I've taken a Nifty data is this data only will give you all such complications. If you take a GDP data, you will not have any such complication, because when you go for the GDP data, it is easily you will be able to, the residuals will be free from correlation, because even there is a shock. If you look at the GDP data, the shock will not have a heavier impact on the GDP. So that data will not have such complications. So here I have a complication. So what I decide is, as I have included 2 and 7 already into the equation, so I'm ignoring that it is okay, and I'm proceeding for the next test. But when you are doing with your data, please be careful. You have to do all the required tests and ensure that it is here it is the p-values are greater than 0.05 and autocorrelation, there is no autocorrelation in the residuals is accepted. Okay. So again, I'm going to residual diagnostic and I'm doing the last residual check. The first one is Carbogram Q test and the last diagnostic check is heteroscedasticity. As I told you, whenever you do ARIMA modeling, the data must be free from residual autocorrelation and it must be free from heteroscedasticity. Heteroscedasticity means mean and variance are conditioned over time, or over a period of time you can see time varying mean and variance. So that is the basic meaning. Okay. So I need to do the final test of heteroscedasticity. Please note, from the output window, click on the view tab, residual diagnostics. The last option is heteroscedasticity. Heteroscedasticity, all the tests are for heteroscedasticity. You can use any test. I'm using the powerful test called the ARCH test. I am selecting the ARCH and I'm giving it as OK. When I do perform an heteroscedasticity test, the null hypothesis says that there is no arch effect. When I say there is no arch effect, it means that there is homoscedasticity in my data. My data is not heteroscedastic. Okay, this is the basic null hypothesis. So what does the p-value of this test indicate? My p-value is greater than 0.05, which means that I need to accept my null hypothesis. My null hypothesis says there is no arch effect, that is, the data is homoscedastic. So this condition is fulfilled. The model says that this particular model, that is ARIMA model of AR2, 5, 7 and MA6 is free from heteroscedasticity. Okay, so now I can use this model for further analysis. Okay, I'm going back to estimate. I'm ensuring whether it is 2, 5, 7 and 6. Yes, it is 2, 5, 7 and 6. I give OK. So adjusted ARIMA model. I've taken the values and I've done the equation. I've run the equation for which I've done the all the tests I have done. Sorry, the results are not here. It is here in the Word document. You can see after doing all these things, I've run the equation, done a residual check. This is where I told you there is again significant spikes, but since we have included that, it is okay. I'm ignoring this and I'm moving on for the next test called the ARCH test, where it talks about heteroscedasticity. The null hypothesis says there is no arch effect. The data is homoscedastic. And I do the ARCH test and the output is taken into consideration. Now, once again, I run the equation and this is how I run the equation 2, 5, 7 and 6. And the results are taken out here like this. And I'm writing it in the ARIMA equation. You would remember that long time back I showed you the equation, how the equation will look like. The generalized ARIMA equation will look like. Let me show you that. The generalized ARIMA equation will look like this. Yes. The ARIMA equation will look like this. Yt is equals to alpha naught, that is constant or intercept, plus beta 1 yt minus 1 plus delta 1 et minus 1. It runs up to beta p yt minus p plus delta q yt minus q. Sorry, et minus q. This is the form. This is the basic form in which an ARIMA equation is written. Now with the output, I have written the equation also. See here, from the output, I've written this equation. Okay. From the output, I've written this equation. All the values are taken from here. Coefficient is 7 point something. So the 7 point yt is equals to alpha naught. That is the constant value. I've taken it here. Plus beta 1 into t minus 2 because it is AR2, that is the second lag. So coefficient of AR2 plus coefficient of AR5 plus coefficient of AR7 t minus 7 plus coefficient of MA, that is t minus 6. Actually it should be it should be E minus 6. I have written it as t minus 6. Sorry, this is E minus 6. Okay, E minus 6. MA is error, so coefficient of E minus 6. Since the coefficient is a negative value, I have mentioned instead of plus, it is written as minus the coefficient E minus 6 plus ET error term. This is how you write an equation for the research articles. Now we will move on for forecasting. How do I forecast the results? So I have to forecast already the equation, whatever I've written, 2, 5, 6 and 2, 5, 7 and 6 is here. The output is here. From this output window, I will do the forecasting. Please remember, from this output window only you have to do the forecasting. How do I do? In this output window, near estimate, there is a tab called forecast. You know, the software is such a user-friendly software which gives all data which is readily available. So near to this, I have forecast. I click on this forecast. It will ask me D Nifty F. A new series will be generated. You can see here I have D Nifty, Nifty. I have C and residuals. That's all I have. So a new series will be generated here. I'm not going for dynamic forecast. I'm going for static forecast. I will tell you the reason why I'm going for static forecast is, since my AR is 2, 5 and 7, it will consider the first thing, AR2. So I will be able to only predict the next 2 values because it will assume like that. If it is AR5, the first term is AR5, I will be able to predict next 5 values. So since the lag, based on the lag values, it will assume the, it will give us space for predicting. So I'm going for a dynamic static forecast. And one more thing, when you go for a dynamic forecast, what will happen is the errors will increase because it will take the forecasted value to predict the next forecasted value. So when there is an error, you will not have control over that. So I'm going for a static forecast and I'm saying okay. See here, this graph will appear. Here we don't have much to interpret, but we should be careful that the forecasted value D Nifty, the forecast error lies between the standard error boundary. That's something which we need to ensure. Okay, my forecast error is lying between the standard error boundary. If you use an OLS model and if you compare it with ARIMA, ARIMA will have less forecast error than compared to OLS model. But if you look at any other, new updated platforms like where artificial networks are used, there you will see the forecast error is still lower than the ARIMA model. So we are not taking any values here. We are trying to understand whether the forecast error lies between the standard error boundaries. That's all we will understand. We will take from this particular data. I will show you where the Nifty F is sitting. See, D Nifty is my original series. D Nifty F is here. I forecasted whatever, how many hour up space was there, how many hour observations were there for which it will get forecasted. See, first initially it takes up to 7 lakhs, so initially the data will not be available, but future if you see till this it is getting to whatever data is available, it is getting forecasted. Why it is getting forecasted is I have given only space for 251 observations here in this particular data set. Since my Nifty values were 251 observations, automatically eViews has created a range of 251 observations, which is only available here. So now what I need to do is I need to create a new work file. I am closing these windows. I am creating a new work file and I'm going to create space and I will show you what is the difference over there. Okay, file, new work file. It will ask me for this information. I should give unstructured. Yesterday I was telling you. Then the number of observations, I'm extending the observations. Earlier it was 251, so I can give as 255. I'm just giving just 4 observations. As I told you, prediction for a very long time will not have a better result. So 255, and I'm giving K. One second. I'm giving 255. Okay. File name. Okay, new work file has come here for me. I've just given a new name. It is asking me whether to delete the old file or not. See here, the Nifty forecast. I'm just dragging this Nifty forecast to this work file and I'm just putting it here. Now you see I've set a range of 255 variables. Now if I click on this Nifty forecast, I can see beyond that 251. Earlier it was 251. Sorry, I have to do the forecasting once again. I'm clicking on the D Nifty and I'm giving the forecast once again. I have to run the equation and then give forecast. Estimate equation. So my equation is D Nifty space C AR2 AR5 AR7 and MA 6. So I'm giving it as okay. So the results have appeared here. Now I give forecast. Sorry, not freeze. So I give near estimate. I have forecast. I give forecast. It is asking me about forecast. I say static forecast and give okay. Now I can go ahead and click on this D Nifty F and I can see earlier I had only 251 observations. I had forecast for only 251 observations. Now I can see 252 and 253. 251 and 252 and 253 because the first AR term is 2, so it is giving me space only to predict the next 2 values because the first 2 lags, the lagged value is taken into consideration and that too is a static forecast, not a dynamic forecast. So hope I am clear till this. Here I forecasted the difference only, not the actual value. Please understand, I forecasted only the difference value. So since my series is D-Nifty, I forecasted only the difference value. So how do I go ahead and forecast my actual values? That has to be done in a manual way. You can see that in my PPT. I have the closing value here. Whatever the closing value, you can see here it is 13,981. 13,981 is the closing value, the last close price, that is of 30th December 2020. Okay, this has to be done manually. What I do here is what I've done here, you can see the difference value, the forecasted difference value, that is minus 38 point something and 36. What I saw in the eViews file is written here. That is, see here, I will show you once again. See the values here, minus 38 and plus 36. These are the difference values which I have forecasted. The next two differences will be, for one, it will be the next period, next day will be minus 38 points, and the next day it will be plus 36 points. So what I do, I go back to the slide and I see here the values. Okay, 38 and 36, minus 38 minus 36. The previous close price, that is 13,981 is the closing price. So 13,981 minus 38 will be the next day, that is 31st December's price, 13,394. Then this 13,394 becomes my the previous day's value, to which I add 36, and the price as of 1st January or the next working day will be 13,980. Okay, this is how I do the prediction. And this value, whatever you have forecasted, you can compare it with the actuals and see what is the difference you get. And you can, that difference what you get is a current error because of an event occurring. The error, because of that kind of an error, the randomness, that error is occurring. But you may ask me, is the ARIMA model only way to predict? No, there are artificial neural network models which are developed, which will help you in predicting in a better manner. And even Arch and Garch models are also considered to be better models for predicting, and those are particularly for modeling volatility, the variance. Even if you use this this data set, the Arch and Garch model for this data set, you will have better results when compared to ARIMA. That is, since the data is having a higher frequency, I'm just telling you, if you use this data with Arch and Garch model, you will have better results. And I wanted to tell you one more thing. If you look at the results here, I just wanted to tell you. You may ask me, the R-square value is somewhere around 10%. You know, the adjusted R-square is 0.08 and the R-square was around 10%. How do we tell that this model is a good model for forecasting? You can still call this model as a good model for forecasting. That is, the results convey that the error, the terms, whatever we have considered, the R terms and the MA terms, whatever we have considered, is able to explain to the to explain the changes in the present value to an extent of 10%. The remaining 90% is influenced by several other parameters. Since the data is nifty closing prices, you get results like this. If you are going with macroeconomic data with the lesser frequency, that is like quarterly data or annual data, definitely you will get better results for that. The reason for choosing is this data has all kind of complications. It will have residual correlation. It will have lower R-square value. I thought I will tell you because when I was attending lot of FDPs, they used to teach ARIMA with the GDP data. It is easy for them to get results. These complications will not be there. Then I used to wonder, what is this? I'm not getting answer. And later I found that when we use more data with high frequency, there are so many complications in that. So we have to use this model in such a way that it will support us. So hope I have added value to you all. If you have any questions, you can ask me.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. No
Ma'am,
questions.
ma'am, I have a question. Can you hear me, ma'am?
Yes, sir. I can hear you.
Ma'am, in eViews, there is a icon that is automatic adjusted ARIMA, so that if we can use that automatic adjusted ARIMA, can we able to see rather than